lovelies. What we're going to be doing today is we're going to be talking about contrast, and we're going to be also talking about warm and cool colors. So we've talked about this before, but warm colors are going to be your fiery colors, right? Your reds, your oranges, your yellows, hot colors. And then your cool colors are going to be those colder water-like colors. So greens, blues, purples, things like that. Yellow is a color that can float in between, and so is purple. It's a color that can kind of float in between. You can have a blue purple, and that can be more of a cool color, or you can have a red purple, and that can be more of a warm color. So you guys will be able to play around with that. So with our art piece today, what we're going to be highlighting is contrast. Contrast is a very important element of art. And basically it adds some interest to your piece to have contrast. So black and white are contrasts. Warm and cool are contrasts. Things that are opposite from each other, they complement each other. And that's what makes an art piece a little bit more interesting. So we're gonna focus on this idea today while we are making our warm and cool contrasting art piece. So for my contrast project, you guys can do whichever you would like. You can come up with your own. So the first thing that I think of when I think of things that are opposite from each other is I think of day and night. I think of the sun and the moon. So what I'm going to do for my contrast project, and what I would suggest doing, even if you decide to do a different subject, is go ahead and cut your paper in half. This is an easy way for you to kind of create a solid line that is going to separate your warm and your cool colors. So for this, if you're gonna do a project similar to mine, we're gonna be using not only the idea of contrast and warm and cool colors, but we're also gonna be using a lot of patterns to create an interesting composition. So you're gonna take your ruler or your straight edge and you're going to make a diagonal line from one edge of the paper to the other. So my ruler doesn't quite fit all the way, as you guys can see, and that's okay. I'm just gonna kind of eyeball it and go as far as I can and then finish the line off. And I'm not exactly to that perfectly on that edge, but that's okay, because art is never perfect. Now you're going to do your main subjects, so your moon and your sun. So I would suggest tracing things for your circle. Your crescent moon, I'm going to do my cool side over here because I accidentally spilled some paint and that's green, is going to just be like the half of a circle and kind of mirror that circle. Okay, again, use sketchy lines so that then we can erase if we don't like it. So there's my crescent moon. So I have this little cup. I'm just gonna flip it upside down and trace it for my sun. Okay, wonderful. So now I have my sun and I have my moon. So a main aspect of a sun are the sun rays. So what I'm gonna do is it's going to be a little bit more narrow on the inside and it's going to burst out. So I'm going to take my ruler and I'm just going to go ahead and just start making lines. Doesn't have to be perfect. I'm just making lines. Just keep in mind that the more lines you make, that's the more patterns and different designs that you're going to have to come up with. So if you don't want to come up with a lot of designs and a lot of patterns, I would suggest not doing a lot of lines. And making your lines a little bit bigger. Okay, so here's my sunny side. Now on your moon side, you can be a lot more creative with how you do this. So I'm gonna draw a few stars that I'm going to have kind of, again, to highlight my contrast idea. I want my moon and my stars to have yellow, which is kind of a floater color between warm and cool, just so I can connect it to my sun side and have a little bit of balance. So a trick for stars, I'll show you guys how I make them. You're gonna take your pencil, put it down, and lightly, so that you can erase it, you're gonna go up, down, almost like the top of a triangle. You're gonna go to the side, over, and then match it back down. I didn't go far enough down, like so. So I'm gonna do a few different sizes of stars. So for the background of this one, I think honestly I'm just gonna do some lines. And I think I'm gonna create that with my colored pencil afterwards. So once you have your main subjects, so your moon and your stars and your sun and the rays, I would go ahead with a Sharpie or a black colored pencil and outline your main subjects. So I'm gonna do a thin black line for these. And again, for your stars, don't outline the middle, just outline the outside. Okay, so now before we start coloring, you guys can take an eraser and erase anything that is pencil. So you can go ahead and erase those. So now for the design and the patterns of our warm and cool colors. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do a combination of markers and colored pencils for this. And when I'm coloring with my colored pencils, I'm gonna color nice and hard because I want this to be a high contrast piece. I want you to have no doubt that this is filled with warm colors patterns and this is filled with cool. So the first thing that I'm gonna do is I'm going to make my patterns for the background of my cool. Again, I'm just gonna do random things. I'm gonna start with my markers just because they're thicker. And I'm just gonna put kind of some random patterns and lines. Okay, so now that I have my main patterns, I'm obviously gonna go in and add even more colors and patterns to this. In my sun, I'm gonna alternate in using markers and colored pencils in order to add my design. But mainly what I just need to keep in mind is that my warm and my cool need to be balanced. Also the amount of patterns. So I can't have a bunch of variety and patterns in here and not have it over here, if that makes sense. So I need to make sure that there's a balance there in that. And so when I'm adding with my markers and my colored pencils, I'm going to keep in mind contrast, I'm gonna keep in mind color, I'm gonna keep in mind variety, and I'm going to color in this beautiful art piece. Can't wait to see what you guys come up with for your contrast, warm and cool color designs.